Rory Feek's daughter, Indiana, is back home after an 8-day hospitalization in Austin, Texas, and the latest public update is the encouraging news her family had been waiting to share. Rory says the 12-year-old, known as Indy, is feeling almost completely like herself again after doctors cleared her to leave the hospital. But her return home came only after a planned open-heart operation, an initial discharge, and then a sudden emergency that sent her back to Austin by medical helicopter. The central question now is how a recovery that initially appeared to be progressing well changed so quickly, and what remains unresolved even after Indy made it home. The newest update was posted publicly on July 19, 2026. Rory said Indiana had been released the previous afternoon and returned to the farmhouse the family has been renting near Waco. He described her as looking and feeling better, but the family was still keeping her close at night rather than immediately returning to its normal routine. That caution matters because only days earlier, Indiana had required another operation after fluid accumulated around her heart and interfered with its ability to pump normally. For verified entertainment updates without the rumors, subscribe to Startline Entertainment. Indiana's heart journey did not begin this summer. According to Rory's public account, she was diagnosed shortly after her birth in 2014 with a ventricular septal defect, commonly called a VSD, a hole between the heart's lower chambers. Rory said doctors initially believed the opening could close as she grew, so it was monitored with follow-up examinations. By early 2026, however, the family had been told that repairing it should no longer be postponed. That medical background is also consistent with information from the National Down Syndrome Society. Indiana has Down syndrome, and the organization says approximately half of babies born with Down syndrome also have a heart condition. Ventricular septal defects are among the commonly reported congenital heart conditions in that population. That general information does not explain Indiana's individual treatment decisions, but it provides context for why her heart had been monitored since infancy. On June 22nd, Rory announced that Indiana would undergo open-heart surgery at Dell Children's Medical Center in Austin. He said the family had consulted children's hospitals in Texas and was preparing for a lengthy recovery period after the procedure. His post also made clear that Indiana understood something serious was approaching and was frightened by it, which is one reason this story requires particular restraint. She is a child, and the most vulnerable details of her hospital experience should not become the entertainment value of the update. The operation took place later that week. After several days of hospital care, Indiana was released on a Monday but remained near the Austin hospital until a follow-up appointment. Rory reported on July 3rd that her medical team had approved the family's return north to Waco. At that stage, the operation appeared to have gone as hoped, and the family began what they expected would be several weeks of gradual recovery at home. Then the timeline changed. According to Rory's July 11th account, Indiana became ill during the night of Wednesday, July 8th, into Thursday morning. The family initially thought she might have contracted a stomach illness. Her condition worsened, however, and after she lost consciousness, Rory and his wife Rebecca called emergency services. Indiana was transported to a hospital in Waco, where an initial heart examination led doctors to arrange an immediate transfer to specialized care in Austin. Indiana and Rebecca traveled by medical helicopter to Dell Children's Medical Center, while Rory followed by road. Rory said the team in Austin discovered that fluid had accumulated around Indiana's heart, placing pressure on it and making it harder for the heart to work normally. She was taken into another operation so the fluid could be drained. He later reported that her heart rate improved quickly after the procedure and that she appeared significantly better by the following morning. That was the most significant turn in the story. Indiana had already undergone a major planned operation and received approval to leave the hospital. The emergency was not simply a continuation of the original admission. It was an unexpected post-operative complication that appeared after the family had started settling into home recovery. Rory said doctors told the family it was not caused by something they had done or failed to do. That explanation comes from his account of what the medical team told him, rather than a separately published statement from the hospital. Instead of being discharged immediately after the second procedure, Indiana remained in Austin, while the team continued monitoring her. Rory's later post said the hospital kept her longer than initially anticipated to increase confidence that the family would not need to make another urgent return. 8 days after that emergency admission, the family received clearance to leave. Back in Waco, Indiana, opened more of the cards and letters that had arrived during her hospital stay, spent time with friends, and took a walk with Rory and Rebecca. Rory wrote that the family talked about the surgery, the frightening return to the hospital, and their longer-term hope of moving back to Tennessee later in the year. The latest public description was positive. Indiana was home, active and close to her usual self, although her family was continuing to watch her carefully. The messages and cards have been a continuing part of Rory's account. After Indiana's first discharge, he said the hospital had received hundreds of pieces of mail from supporters around the country. Those messages followed her back to Waco and continued arriving during the second hospitalization. Public reaction to the health news itself has therefore largely centered on relief, prayer, and support for Indiana's recovery. But there is another part of the story that cannot be presented as though the family agrees about how Indiana's experience should be shared. Rory's older daughters, Heidi and Hopie Feek, publicly criticized his decision to post photographs and detailed accounts from Indiana's hospitalization. Heidi said she learned about the seriousness of her sister's emergency through social media and argued that Indiana's hospital stay involved vulnerable moments that should not be monetized or used to promote unrelated work. Hopie also supported the privacy concerns. These were criticisms and opinions expressed by the sisters. They are not findings from a court or medical authority. The criticism also sits within a much longer estrangement between Rory and his adult daughters concerning access to Indiana and decisions about her care. That history predates this hospital stay, and both sides have made serious claims about the family conflict. This update should not be used to declare either side correct about the broader dispute. The verified development here is narrower. Indiana experienced a serious post-operative complication, received emergency treatment, remained under observation, and was later cleared to return home. Here is the start line takeaway. What changed is Indiana's immediate status. A week earlier, the family was still in an Austin hospital after a frightening medical emergency. The newest public update places her back at home and describes her recovery in hopeful terms. What viewers should not assume is that going home means every stage of recovery is finished, or that the family's privacy disagreement has been resolved. Those conclusions are not supported by the current public record. The timing also matters. Rory's first July update suggested that the operation and initial recovery had gone exceptionally well. The emergency return demonstrated how quickly circumstances could change during the early post-operative period. The second discharge is therefore more than a repetition of the first. It followed additional treatment and a longer period of observation after the complication was identified. As of July 20th, 2026, the clearest confirmed public status is that Indiana is home near Waco with Rory and Rebecca, and Rory says she is doing very well. No newer medical update or separate public statement from her treating hospital appeared in the sources checked after the return home announcement. The next development to watch is whether the family provides another recovery update and whether Rory responds directly to the renewed concerns about sharing Indiana's private medical experiences. For now, the most important part of the timeline is also the simplest. After surgery, an emergency flight, and 8 more days in the hospital, Indiana was cleared to go home. The unanswered questions belong to the weeks ahead, but the latest verified chapter is one of relief rather than crisis.